part of what I want to cover today, before we get to it, is the series of events that we're going to run right throughout the year, and how these themes will change with your help. So, firstly, thank you and for actually making it here. Some of you may have seen me zipping around on a buggy earlier on, the BIM buggy, so I promise I wasn't playing golf. I was just trying to help you make your way up. So thank you for actually making it here. So feel free to keep your phones on, but if you could help us raise awareness of the event is actually happening with sending out some tweets using the hashtag today, which is BIM Digital Standards. Just for my benefit, how many of you here are using Twitter and will help us tweet today? Show of hands. So a couple. Okay, good. Well, I'd encourage you all to use this. This almost becomes like a knowledge sharing platform to share ideas, thoughts and events like this. So BIM Digital Standards is a hashtag we'll be using today. Fire exits are marked there. There's nothing planned today, so if you do hear anything, then the fire exits are there to your left. Toilets as well, just behind Nick and Antony at the front here. So you know where they are. We're also recording today's session. Andrew at the front here is recording this for us, and this will be available on the UK BIM Alliance YouTube channel next week, Pam? Next week? There we go, perfect. And again, thank you for making it today. And I do want to extend the thanks for now to all of our speakers and everybody that's make this event happen, especially to all of the work that goes on behind the scenes that goes into putting an event like this together, the venue, getting all of you here. So biggest thank you goes to Pam Bhandal at the back. So thank you, Pam. Quick round of applause for everything she's done. Honestly, without Pam's help, you know, the way this event has been set up, a professional it has all been, you know, we just wouldn't be able to do it. So thank you very much. So today, quick welcome from myself. And then we're going to move on to Pam and then Paul Wilkinson, who are going to talk to you about the UK BIM Alliance and beyond. Nick then has kindly offered to share some of the stories and share some of the journey that Atkins have gone through with ISO and beyond. And you probably saw the video looping earlier on. That's actually a project just up the road in Pontypridd. What's the name of the project, Dave?
Taffel Redevelopment.
Taffel Redevelopment, and we'll hear more client in the room as well. So looking forward to hearing that story and actually sharing you know, a local story as well. I think this is probably the first event that I've chaired where we're talking about local digital projects and what's actually happening. So we hope to be able to hear by around about 5 o'clock to close with questions and answers to the talks from today. Just one or two more things from me. So BIM Regions is rebranding. So we had our communities call last week, and that's now UK BIM Alliance Wales. The reason for this rebrand really is to sort of stop any confusion in what the alliance is, what the BIM regions are. So it's one alliance, one team, one message, just to stop confusion and help us sort of share the same message right across the country. So we'll be updating all of our social media and logos and all of that good stuff. So I just wanted to share that today. It's UK BIM Alliance Wales. And this is probably I'd say the biggest audience we've had since myself and some of the team, Nick, Andrew and Antony, have been pulling these events together. Simply, I think the second biggest one was in Cardiff 2 years ago, again, when Pam was with us. So that was about 50 people, I think, Pam. So we just want to continue the momentum and have you all here at ongoing events moving forward. So if you do want to get involved, then here's our UK BIM Alliance Wales team. So maybe the team can just stand up quickly so people can see who you are. So we've got Lewis from Hydrock, Nick Atkins, and Andrew, Rio, Antony from Willmott, Dixon, and I think Daniel is probably online somewhere tweeting or posting this up on LinkedIn now, but Dan Roster from BSI as well. So if you do want to get engaged and share your stories, then you know where we all are. So this is the first event of many events that are happening right throughout the UK, through the various regions. So you can find all of the information through the website here of ongoing events right throughout the regions. Wales specifically, some of you filled in a survey that one of the teams sent out just to ask what is it that you would like to see throughout the course of the year. So we've set ourselves a target of 4 events for the year, 1 per quarter. And based on the feedback that we got from the survey that Antony put together, I believe, these were the sort of themes that we were looking to focus on. So the Q2 BIM digital scope and what that means and underneath that, so then for Q3, Q4 and beyond. So we've got a structure in place that we'd like to continue with. The content is yourselves. So what we'd really like to do is engage with everyone in this room a lot more. We want a diverse range of speakers, content. So I know one thing that we'd be keen to do is to get more females involved as well, which would be great. So if any of you in the room here, maybe Danielle, want to talk about what Welsh Water are doing, then we'd love to hear the story and for you to share that, and anybody else as well. So if you think you've got a story you could share with any of those themes there, then please get in touch. Give us your business card towards the end of the day, and you know the Alliance is you. I've heard Anne say that on a number of occasions now. So we're a team. Let's help to develop the industry and progress forward together. So I'll stop because I'll just keep going and welcome our first talk from Paul Wilkinson. So Paul.
Can everybody hear me all right? Yeah, loud and clear, nods in the back, great. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you. I'm going to be talking about, as you can see, UK BIM Framework and the UK BIM Alliance. I'm hoping this will fit neatly with as a lead-in to what Nick's going to talk about in terms of their ISO 19650 journey as well. I'm speaking to you in my role as member of the UK BIM Alliance Executive and Chair of the Technology Group. For those who don't know me, I thought I'd just put this quick slide up. I divide my time roughly between being a PR and marketing person, a technology consultant, and a journalist and copywriter. My background includes some time in professional services. Can you see all right? Yep. I was at Tarmac Professional Services before it Carillioned. And I was at BIW Technologies for 9 years. And I just identified a mutual friend at RLB that I worked with in my early days with that company. More recently, I've been active as Deputy Chair of the Digital Transformation Community of Practice at the Institution of Civil Engineers. I'm involved with other bodies, and obviously the Alliance is the reason I'm here today. I'm going to be talking about what we describe now as an overarching approach to implementing better information management. We don't talk about building information modelling, it's increasingly now about better information management. And a key to this, the foundation for this that was launched, developed by BSI, CDBB and the UK BIM Alliance and launched in October last year, is the UK BIM Framework. So some of you might be thinking, what levels and things like that? The UK BIM Framework basically replaces lots of the talk about levels. So the levels are dead. I've tweeted once or twice. If you want to tweet, I am EE Paul on Twitter, by the way. But the basis of the UK BIM Framework is to emphasise this is about whole life. This is covering everything from design to operation and providing a means to explore how built assets are integrated with the economy, with society and with the environment. So this isn't just about being focused purely on what we do as construction folk, it's about fitting in and providing social value as an industry. The timeline for this stretches back more than a decade, but for the purpose of this slide, we'll say it started around about 2010. But it gathered momentum from 2010 onwards as various documents came out. We had the BIM mandate in April 2016, gave us a target to aim for, and since then organisations including the BIM regions and other communities and UK BIM Alliance, founded in 2016, and CDBB, just see here, formation of CDBB, they're part of that process of moving us forward as a sector. The ambition is to make the UK BIM framework business as usual. You know, that's part of the ambition for the industry. And to do that, part of the endeavour is to develop the UK BIM framework on the basis of using a lot of standardisation. And we've been moving as an ambition for the last 9 years since the Construction Client Group report came out, set an ambition for us to work towards the establishment of international standards. This was partly to recognise that as an industry, many of our firms, Atkins and others in the room, operate internationally. So international standards are important for consistent operation across those businesses. Contractors, suppliers, software vendors, all working internationally increasingly as well. But there's also an opportunity here. The Construction 2025 targets talked about increasing export opportunities. So by taking a leading role in developing international standards, this was an opportunity for UK businesses to adopt a leading position when it came to sharing their expertise internationally. So we've been working as a country, the British Standards Institute at the bottom, International Standards Organisation, and the International it's International Electrotechnical Commission at the top level. And in between we have the European dimension to our standard setting as well. And these have been the engines through which ISO 19650 has been developed. So many of you might be familiar with what we were previously talking about, British standards, BS 1192, then the PAS suite of documentation. So from January 2019, roughly 12, or almost exactly 12 months ago, we started to see the first publication of international standards, the British versions of those international standards. BSEN ISO 19650 Part 1 and Part 2 came out then. Also published on the right-hand side, transition guidance. So for those who are already using British standards and the PAS suite and you want to convert to ISO, there is a guidance document to help you make that transition. Roll forward to now, and you can see that more of those PAS documents are in the process of being turned into international standards, into ISO standards. BS 1192 Part 4 is imminent. Parts 3 and 5 are in development. But there will be some guidance which may not be internationalised. The health and safety one, for example, recognises that UK health and safety practice is very different from health and safety practice in many other parts of the world. So some parts of those standards will not go to a full ISO in the same way. But throughout this process, on the right-hand side again, the aim of the UK BIM framework is to provide guidance documents supporting all of those standard developments and helping you adopt and use and interpret those standards in your daily work. The principle is probably quite familiar to those who've been working in a BIM environment for a while. We talk about the different perspectives from asset owners and asset users, obviously through the project delivery and asset management phases, but there's also the fourth line on that table, the social perspective, looking at why we do this from the point of view of delivering social value. The international standards form part of a family of standards. It fits within the context of other ISO standards for asset and project management and for organisational management, things like ISO 9001. So they fit neatly together. There's a consistent approach here. And there's also clear definitions about how organisational information requirements contribute to project information requirements, how they relate to asset information requirements and so on. You can see the diagrams there. So this is all covered in the ISO 19650 suite of documentation. As the documents have been updated, some of the diagrams have changed a little bit. Some of you might remember a version of this diagram which was a little bit more like the wedge. If you remember the wedge, yes, that's quite familiar. But the diagram has been slightly redrawn to reflect that the operational phase, the asset management phase, is way longer than just the design and construction phases of projects. The information, all that in the box is the common data environment, the CDE process, and during delivery you've got that light green creation of lots of information during project delivery, some of which is retained for use throughout the operational through the asset management phase. That's that green band across the top. But during the operational phase, you're also accumulating lots of data from the in-use performance of the asset and its interactions with its end users, occupants, and so on. And there'll be various trigger events through which other information is created. So that reflects where the massive information grows, both in quantity and quality, as the asset and the data about that asset matures. Is that all clear? Yeah? Nods? Great. Excellent stuff. Common data environment still has the traditional process of work in progress through shared information, through to published information, and at the end of the project we talk about archives. It's very clear when you look at the ISO documentation that this is not a technology solution, this is primarily a combination of workflows and technology, and the workflows come first and the technology supports the workflows. It's not trying to shoehorn your processes to suit the technology, it's the other way around. So, how are we going about implementing this? And I'm not going into the detail that Nick's going to cover, but the mechanism for driving this adoption of ISO 19650 forward, it's about people like yourselves. It's about the UK BIM Alliance and other organisations working together to drive adoption of ISO 19650. As the slide says, it's for the industry, by the industry. So every one of you in this room can potentially be contributing to this. And you'll see at the bottom, it's the standard setting side of things has seen the body that was driving the standards engagement with Building Smart International, Building Smart United UK and Ireland, is now part of the UK BIM Alliance. You know, we work together very closely now as a much more seamless single organisation. So the communities that are part of this, if we look in that blue bubble, you can see at the very core there is an executive and strategy team. They've got some non-exec directors, and there is a strategic advisory group. But the primary engagement with industry and implementation of projects is run in that little sort of dark circle here. So we've got communities. BIM Wales Group is part of that community. We've got some vertical industry groups like BIM for Water, which I saw Rhys had up on a slide earlier. Got Technology Group, which I'll just briefly mention again in a second. We've also got opportunities to bring on board patrons, sponsors, and affiliate organisations, so professional bodies from across the industry, get them engaged in the process. And they can be engaged in the process and support implementation. We have projects that we are running, creating knowledge and a resource for the industry to use. So these are opportunities to get involved in those sorts of things. And of course, the yellow thing at the bottom, the operations, we obviously have to have some structures to keep the alliance going. Technology Group, which I chair, includes Revizto. So, thanks to Rhys and his team for helping with today's event. So we have around about a dozen firms, and we're hoping to recruit more going further forward. So the guidance isn't just being developed by UK BIM Alliance people. It's a combination of 3 different organisations, but also a lot of people from across the industry, most of whom are giving up their time voluntarily, contributing to, as authors, providing a focus group against which some of the content is shared and reviewed and receives feedback. So this is very much a collaborative team effort. You'll sometimes hear BIM being talked about as a collaborative process. We're trying to practice what we preach in how we develop the BIM standards and supporting guidance. And quite a few familiar names, several of whom are in this room, all engaged in that process, working on various committees. B555 includes several names there that you may find familiar. And there is a very robust review process through which organisations, the experts from across these organisations, can input, review and comment on the documentation that's being produced by the Alliance and as part of the UK BIM framework. And all of that content is reviewed before anything is published. So we value the industry feedback. And I know Anne Kemp will often say this: don't just tell us what you don't like, tell us what you do like as well. Sometimes it's great to hear that you really like how something has been phrased, or you really like how a particular diagram supports a particular process. It's important that we get the big ticks in the box as well as the brickbats about the things you don't like. So the guidance that's starting to emerge now is coming out in parallel with the publication of the ISO standards. So when Part 1 of ISO 19650 came out, it was followed soon after by Part 1, Guidance Part 1, looking at the concepts of that ISO documentation. And this particular document didn't need a huge amount of embellishment. The second edition was released 3 months later with some minor edits and responding back to some of the feedback. But as the Part 2 documentation is much more involved. The process here is very much about incremental release of information. We're trying to make documentation both online and in print form, which is easy to navigate and provides different ways of navigating through the documents. You can read the whole thing, the whole documentation from beginning to end, or you can dip in depending upon your role and responsibility in a project and follow the flow of responsibilities and tasks that you need to undertake dependent upon your role. So the process is to some extent colour-coded. You can sort of see what type of party are you, the appointing party, the lead appointed party, part of the task team, and so you can follow and track the different processes, and the BIM framework takes you through in a structured way, showing you the clauses that you need to look at each phase, at each section of a process. So, second edition of that guidance came out in October. This is the current one. It's available on the website at the moment. And from the first major expansion of this document was really in the area of common data environments. So John Ford from Galliford Try has written a substantial addition to the documentation, roughly 16 pages of it. So lots of detail in there about common data environments. Also some expansion of explanations of the Clause 5 sub-clauses as well. But we haven't stopped. This incremental release that I talked about is based on a quarterly cycle. So in 3 months from October, January, the end of this month, Sarah Davidson is working like a Trojan to get this next guidance document produced, and it will include more information about BIM execution plans, about information requirements, levels of information need, and a section also about open data. So, and that touches on where the future direction of the industry is going in terms of some aspects of open data, which I'll come on to soon. So this is coming out in less than a couple of weeks' time. And 3 months on from that, there will be yet another version of this documentation. Do not wait for them to come out. Look at the documentation as it's live at the moment. Familiarise yourself with it. It will build up, and you then perhaps only need to read the fresh sections as each iteration comes out. And in the meantime, if you read something and you want to feedback to it, there is an email address, guidancefeedback@ukbimalliance.org, for anybody that has comments about the documentation that's been produced. Where do you get this documentation? There is a website, ukbimframework.org. About as simple as we can make it. So you can find the information there. Under standards and guidance, the middle item on the third item on the navigation at the top there, and the guidance is free to download. This is not like downloading British standards, and you may have to pay money for those. The guidance is free. Not many things in this industry are, but this guidance is. Making it free is partly one of the reasons to try and encourage digital transformation. BIM is a vital foundation for all firms in the built environment sector to continue their digital transformation. We've had, unfortunately, disasters such as the Grenfell Tower fire, which have underlined the need for better information management to support the whole life of built assets. And currently, where building information is present, it is often incomplete. We often don't have that full record of who did what and when, and it's maybe not accessible to those who need it at the time they most need it. But a digital first assumption is increasingly being made in relation to the future of the management of building regulations and building control, and the whole life management of built assets. And some of you might have read in the papers, in the trade press today, about the extension of the post-Grenfell reforms to cover buildings only 11 metres high, not the 18 metres high before, and also pushing for much more rigid policing of the composite cladding environment. Yeah, this is just touching the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the future of the industry. We're going to be talking a lot more about how we use digital information to manage information throughout the life cycle of those assets. This all fits into a background also of industry strategy. I talked about 2010, the start of the process. If we only talk about the last 2 or 3 years, we've had budget statements, we've had industrial strategies, we've had a construction sector deal, all pushing consistently the same targets that we had in the Construction 2025 vision. And the industrial strategy is pushing whole life value and also more use of pre-manufactured components, or off-site manufacture, as some people describe it. So this is where the industry is going to modernise. And the backdrop to this is also a wider Whitehall requirement being pushed by the National Infrastructure Commission, focused on the need for data for the public good. This is connecting the built environment to data about measuring the social value created by our built assets. So, construction sector deal, July 2018, 18 months ago, thereabouts. It's three main strategies. Some organisations starting to look at marketing digital twin capability. This was a diagram produced by Microsoft about 15 months ago, which on the one hand is quite exciting. You've got one of the big global IT firms looking at digital twin, but it's also could be a little bit worrying. They're going to take over from some of our existing providers. Certainly the vision is that we can integrate lots of different technologies and start to work in smart cities, have common availability of location-based mobile applications and autonomous transport systems. This is where the big picture of digital twin fits. So, to conclude, UK BIM framework. Want to know more about it? These are the places you can go. You can email info@ukbimframework.org. You can visit the website at ukbimframework.org. You can tweet at UK BIM framework. But you can also get involved by engaging with the Alliance. And I'll leave up those links just in case you want to connect with us in any way. So thank you very much for your time.
Then we're doing good for time, so perhaps we'll take one or two questions now for Paul, if there are any.
I'll do my best to answer any questions.
Yeah, we'll a few minutes before we get on to the next presentation. So you can plug in the actually. Yeah. There we go.
Have I mystified anyone?
I think Paul, well, firstly as well, Paul, thanks for making all the journey all the way down here. Really appreciate you coming and sharing that wealth of knowledge to everybody. Let's show our hands again in the room then. Who knows or has come across a digital twin? Or who? Everyone? No? Okay, so sort of 50-50, but maybe we can start with that in your presentation. I think most of that is probably down to Nick on what he's been saying and doing. But perfect, all right. Well, all the information will be shared as well through the Alliance website, so you'll get an email with a link where to download the slides. I could see people trying to take pictures and scribble down notes throughout the presentation, but everything will be...
I'm here until at least 6 o'clock this evening, so if you do want to have a chat with me afterwards, just come buttonhole me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, any other questions we'll take towards the end as well. So next up is Nick Toon from Atkins, who's going to talk to us about what they've been doing in an ISO. Neil couldn't make it today, so he sends his apologies, but Nick will
on the reserve.
Just fine, I'm sure.
I'd like to say, as a Welshman, it's always good to speak at these events. And actually, Atkins is a bit odd, really, because the main people, Atkins is 55,000 people, including SNC Lavalin, and most of the digital directors are based out of Wales. So there's myself, there's Mark sitting over there, there's Gwion Kennard, so the real digital hub of brains of Atkins is out of Wales, so that's something to be slightly proud of. And as one of them, I'll try to tell you about our journey. So I guess, you hear a lot about theory, you hear a lot of documents, and I guess sometimes it's really useful to actually find out what people have done and how they're doing it. And I'm hoping that this will help show you, a big organisation like Atkins, how we go about trying to implement a standard such as ISO 19650. So, what is the context that we're looking at before I get into the actual nitty-gritty of how we do it? In Atkins, we actually have a programme, and it's not called digital transformation, it's called design transformation, because in essence we're designers. And in transforming the way we design, there's actually quite a few things that change. Contracts need to change, skill sets need to change, but digital is really the underpinning enabler to allow that design transformation to happen. Now this slide here I use all the time, because what I say to people, it's all about the whole value, the whole life client value proposition. So what you can easily do, we talk about digital twins, so here's my little digital twin bit, is we can often jump to the end and say, right, I want one of these shiny operational digital twins over here. But if you haven't done all the basics from the very beginning and work your way through the life cycle, you're not going to have that. And let's be honest, in terms of how many digital twins there are out there, real, there's probably only a handful in the whole of the country that I'd quantify as a digital twin. In other words, a digital representation of the physical asset with a real-time or a near real-time data connection. There's not a lot out there. There's probably some, but not that much. So what does it all mean? I think the starting point, and this is why it comes back to information management, the starting point is the client, and what does the client actually want? So, employs information requirements, BIM phrase, data requirements. If you don't start with this, you're going to fail. And then we go into our bidding mobilisation phase, and here we're talking, we're developing our BIM execution plans, but here's where the data starts. What survey data? So before we start a project, we need to know what their asset or what the existing ground conditions or whatever there may be. So now is where we start actually collecting data. And we're trying to do this left shift in the way that we deliver. And I'm sure lots of you thought about this. So we are trying to do more design up front. So people often say, build it right first time. I say that's rubbish. You want to say, design it right first time. We design it right after 1,000 times. And the reason for that is this is the place most ripe for automation in early phase design. So what we do is we have concept design, and then we use algorithms, etc. Things like, Dynamo is a good example of a tool that you use with Revit, for instance. But there's many, many more. And where we run many different design scenarios early to come up against the most optimal design, so that we design it right first time when we go from optioneering into detailed design. Now in this, again, we've got data. The data maturity on that wedge is building as we're going through this in our data lake or common data environment. And I'll talk a bit about the difference of those maybe a bit later. Because when people think of a CDE, most CDEs are not CDEs, they're document management systems. I'm not talking about a document management system. And then we get to a model-based design. So we have our standardized componentry of objects, in effect, and data sheets, which we can then easily assign to our initial design. And then we're now connecting, if you like, we're doing our left shift, but we're actually going right as well, and we're connecting with the manufacturers and the fabricators. Now the thing, as I said, underpinning the whole of this is our data environment, right from the beginning right across towards our digital twin. And a big area of importance for us when we're working with partners like Balfour Beatty, for instance, on our highways programs, is digital rehearsal. And the digital rehearsal is pretty much what it says on the tin. It's rehearsing the design. So as we're starting to design, it's getting the contractor with us from the very beginning and making the decisions and doing design reviews weekly and fortnightly. And then it's including things as we're going through this, 4D for instance, so it could be planning, 5D could be cost, health and safety, so sustainability. There's many elements we bring into this through the process. And if you like, this is what some people refer to as a design digital twin. I don't really, I call that, as I say, digital rehearsal. And what final bottom here is digitally enabled project management. So again, all off this data layer, we need the data to manage the projects effectively. Because I always say to everyone, we always manage projects, and this industry is built upon experience, not based upon data. And we need to get data and experience. So that's my overall framework and the context. And as horizons, we talk about horizons. One, if you like, is paper-based. You might think of it as BIM level 1 maybe. And then we're getting to more like an Horizon 2, which is more 3D object-based proper CDEs, automation, a lot of things I'm talking about. And then moving towards a Horizon 3, where it's much more autonomous design, data-driven design, generative, etc. And as a business and also as an industry, we're on this journey, aren't we? We're on the journey of moving from BIM level 1, 2D, with document management systems and trying to phase them out. We've got some level of real crazy automation, optimization, and really the big drive for us really is what we call Horizon 2, which is, if you like, let's call it proper BIM, doing it properly. And actually this line was kind of further out that way, and I think things have changed a bit. We've actually, in the last couple of years, we've made that change, and we are getting less of that old way of working and more of the better way of working. But a company like Atkins, and I'm sure all the big companies, have a long, long way to go. We're still doing, lots of the basics. So we have to take the top 10% and move that to the remaining 90%, if you like. And that also relates to the technology stacks that we're using. I'll go over that one quite quickly. So how do we do it? Important one, this is what you want to know. Everything we do is based on three things, and I'm sure we're not the first people to ever come up with these three headings, but they actually work really well. Everything is people, process, technology. No matter what you do, it fits into one of those brackets. People being the most important, probably then process and then technology. And the hardest of all is people. So we've made most success in process, then technology, and least in people. And that'll be the same, I guess, for everybody and every business here. And what we've done is tried to put it throughout our business management systems in Atkins. So we have our digital delivery policy statement, we have our BMS, our corporate standards, we have our digital delivery plans, and then we have our processes, and we have our people plans and our technology plans, and all that leads to, if you like, great ISO 19650 BIM delivery, and then the certification that we got. So you can't read it, you don't need to read it, all it says, where it's highlighted there within the policy statement, is that ISO 19650 is part of the way that we deliver. So we're meant to be delivering all our projects, or as many as possible, obviously to 19650. And also for 2019, I head up the digital engineering strategy for the UK and Europe business. And within the 2019 plan was to become one of the world's first organisations to obtain ISO 19650 accreditation with BSI, and kind of proud that we were the first organisation in the world to get BSI ISO 19650 accreditation. So we achieved what we set out to do. So more about how we did it. Top level, I guess, is your BMS in a big organisation like ours, your business management system, and within that, then there are the high-level documents and the high-level kind of procedures and standards that the business works to. And then we have our implementation plan, and that links to what I just showed you earlier around the business case and having the pieces in place, the pieces of the jigsaw in place in the project setup. So whether it's our BIM execution plans, whether it's our master information delivery plans, responsibility matrices, and then the BIM for design and pre-construction, so the CTE setup, it could be, for instance, into construction, how we then get the models for the contractors to be able to take them and do 4D or 5D with them, and then how do we hand over the asset information of the models at the end with the data tagged into them. So we have, things to do right from the very beginning, right the way through that life cycle. So starting with people, the hardest bit, we have experts around the world. We have a big presence in India with a global design centre, and there's all the different businesses around the world. And obviously it's trying to get a network of champions to drive this forward and trying to get us all working to common ways. Because what can happen in these businesses is, some businesses work like, do it this way, some businesses do it that way, some people use this technology, that technology, and I'm all about getting consistency and standardization. And that's where ISO 19650 can help, because the whole point is getting international standardization. And I don't know if any of you here have worked much abroad, but there was a lot of cynicism from the rest of the world about, it's just a UK BIM standard. Now it's this ISO, hopefully we can all get behind it. Interestingly, I find most of these countries are still saying the same thing. There's obviously UKs who've made that. So Scandinavia, which falls under my area, haven't adopted ISO 19650 at all yet. So we're trying to push them to do it. The USA, not at all yet. So I think there's a big job to get the ISO standard. But hopefully it will become more globally used, because that can only help us all. And interestingly, it's been the biggest benefit in our business to the GDC. Because these poor guys design for every single part of the world. And they don't want to be designing standard for the US standard, the Australia standard, the UK standard. So can they just follow one standard? So that's how it helps. And in the people, we have our learning and development plans, from soft skills behaviour, face-to-face, our skills database, knowledge sharing, webinars, lunch and learns, lessons learnt then, I guess, in the centre and the capacity. So there's a programme, if you like, around education and knowledge for the people within the business. Again, probably the thing that needs the most work. And something that has been a success, and really was part of the ISO certification, was you have to prove in the ISO 19650 certification that you're doing upskilling. So we have modules, and this is on our learning zone, which is our internal framework for education, training, continual learning development. We have modules, for instance, on BIM, on information management, ISO 19650, online, so you can dip into them. And we had a target of 500 people to go through it in 2019, and we got over 1,000 people have trained. Now, it's not going to do everything, but at least it gets everyone on the same page of what we're doing and what it's about. And now we're developing that further, further modules in it and pushing out further through the business.
Can I just ask a quick question? So is that part of the this training? Is that something you've custom made?
Yes.
Within, yeah. Okay.
Yes. But a lot of it is not. Made up, because it's all based on the standards, really, isn't it? But it's how we implement it. Yeah. But it is ours, yeah. Bit of who then people. So as you know, we've got a few kind of BIM rock stars in Atkins. So you've got Anne Kemp, who's probably the most famous person there, but also Terry Stocks, who heads up was heading up the BIM Level 2 delivery in UK government. Neil Thompson, you've heard mentioned, my good self and various others. So we have a champion network across the globe. And actually today, before I came up here, I was on our global BIM call in terms of strategy before coming to this. So in terms of, I'm moving then, if you've seen, from people to process, and then I'll go to technology. In terms of process then, these levels are not BIM Level 1, BIM Level 2, BIM Level 3. Maybe just to get that confusion out of the way, there's just, I don't know, levels on a chart. Really important, this is probably the most important thing on process. We need standardised process of working. So what we developed was something called our Global Design Framework, which was saying how you should work. But that's quite high level. That's high level, how you should work in regards to information management. Underneath that then, we have more specific processes on how we design. So an example would be we've gone from an information management framework level for the whole business, and then say we're designing then modelling our highway. We've even gone down now to say how you actually design certain assets. So how you design a culvert, or how you design a bridge or a parapet, or whatever it may be, and we go through how you use the software and the processes that you're doing. So we've mapped out those processes, and now everyone should follow them based on the higher information management processes. The next thing we're going to do is lean them, so value stream map those processes to make them more efficient, and then finally automate them. So your automation is not just random bits of automation, it's automation based on how do we automate the most important processes for delivery. And we need technology that underpins that delivery. So I mentioned the GDF, the single one most important thing we did. This is, if you follow this, then you are meeting ISO 19650. So it's similar to what the BIM framework has got some there, but this is our own made-up version. So it's not public consumption, I apologise, it's purely Atkins. we went through bidding, mobilisation, delivery, design delivery, and handover, and then supporting processes. And each of these has a process here. So what's the process to follow on these core areas? And they're things like pre-contract back, they're things like responsibility matrix, CDE setup, single disciplinary check, interdisciplinary check, query management, change management. So all the main key areas of things you need to do around information management based on the standard. And then they're all the process that you should follow. And then what we did is we made all the templates and added the templates to the main processes. So for instance, in the BEP templates, you have a template for a BEP. In the MITP, Master Information Delivery Plan 1, we have an MITP template. So you can see, so everyone now can follow the processes. Everyone follows the same processes for the world, and they have then the same templates to deliver to. So it's about that standardisation and consistent way of delivering it. And how we did it was we locked people in a room for a whole week. A year ago now, just over a year ago, to come up with this. And we knew it wouldn't be perfect. And it was great fun, and there were a load of arguments. And have you heard of it? Storming, norming, performing? So is it storming is you all arguing in the beginning, norming is you kind of agreeing, and then performing and coming up with something useful. And I think we were classic storming, norming, performing. And it was the best thing I've ever done since I've been in Atkins. And it came up with that GDF, and it's been refined since, obviously, because it was never going to be perfect first time. So just quickly, if you remember, the left-hand side of it was this, which is bidding. And what we've done now is we've implemented what we call design accelerators. So on every big bid, we use the design accelerator team to help the bid team to make sure it's bid properly. If you don't bid something properly, you cannot deliver it properly. Forget it. We've started on projects that are in mobilisation, and all we've done is made them worse. Because they're not set up with the programme right, they're not costed right, they haven't got the right skill sets of people, they haven't got the client buy-in. Disaster. Don't bother doing ISO 9650 on a project you've already won. Do it something that you're bidding. So we've got to make sure we bid the thing properly. We run workshops and we look at are we doing it properly, but also what's the opportunity for automation and taking cost out. Mobilisation then, so we win the job. We're making a mobilisation service with the GDC, our India centre, where in effect, you know, your CDE's there, your software's there with all the right formats, your Teams site set up, you know, everything's there ready for you to go, basically. So we're trying to get that service to make it slick, so when we win, we can go and follow the standards. And then in delivery, the main bit here really is the next level of granularity. So as I said, in here you can't read them, but things like the modelling authoring, well, that's where we're doing the modelling input statements to say exactly how you design it. The single disciplinary check, we have guidance. This is how you do the disciplinary check. Interdisciplinary check, this is how you do it. You follow this. You might then link to Revizto. Shout out for Rhys, as a tool to use to do the collaboration in the IDC process, and so on and so forth. So there's the guidance in the the nitty gritty you need to follow. And then closeout. So client survey, getting the data out there, feedback loop, and the rest. Now, to support all of that, you need templates. So we've made something called BIM Navigator. Maybe a bad name, it's not Navigator like the Bentley Navigator, but BIM Navigator our own, which is where all the templates are kept to help to deliver that. And they're all linked to those processes. So as you go through it. Now, onto technology. I won't do it in 5 minutes. As I just said, there's no point just starting to look at sexy automation scripts and things just for the fun of it. You need to start with standardizing, and as I said, the process and the technology. So that's the GDF, our design processes, and then standardizing our technology sets. Then need to lean it. Don't worry, don't jump, because if you've got a crap process to begin with and you automate it, you've still got a crap process and a crap in, crap out. So map the process, map the technology, then lean it, then automate it in that process. And you can see from the process bit on the left, the GDF, you can see on the right, this was actually, this pains me when I talk about this, makes me feel I want to cry. This was a load of work we were doing on the M4, the M4 relief road that never happened. The amount of prep that went into that around how we lean the process and how we deliver that process and the technology, and then we automate it. You won't read this, you don't need to read this. Standardising our tool sets. I don't know about any other big businesses here, but we use everything and everywhere. So we're trying to get the disciplines to standardise on less. And then, because standardising on less tool sets helps you with training, it's easier, you don't have to train bloody on everything. Helps you then get the right formats in the tools. So, if you don't format the tools properly, then it doesn't work, so it's easier for that regard. It's obviously cheaper because we use less of them. So there's 1,000,001 reasons why we need to standardise our tool sets. And what we've done in here is basically to say the most predominantly used tool sets per discipline. So that could be signalling, it could be bridges, what's the tools we predominantly use, and then what's the tool we want to be transitioning to for the business. The CDE. So, you know, Paul showed that in terms of, you know, WIP, shared, published, archived. You know, what does that mean in reality? It's a bloody complicated piece about how you actually do this. And as I said, most CDEs aren't really data environments, they're document management systems, like project-wise. And where we're trying to get to in the CDE world is what I call a cloud-based, web-enabled CDE. Now, anyone who understands CDEs will kind of get that. If you don't, apologies. What I try and explain myself is when you do the WIP area, so you're designing something, in ProjectWise, you design something and then you share it into ProjectWise. You design something, share it into ProjectWise. You design something and then you federate it and then you share it. Yeah, as a process. With tools now, the way BIM 360 is going with Revit and Civil 3D, you can actually do your design collaboratively in the cloud, and you could use it you can use, you know, various ways of doing it. Once you're happy with that, then you can put it through a CDE, if you like, to a shared published version. And the tools, and that's where the industry's going. And there's amazing Trimble tools that we're starting to use in Scandinavia, NovaPoint and Quadri, which again run the same thing. So we're trying to make the WIP area a live area where designers work collaboratively and then share. But also it's more than just that. It's what's the full project data architecture in our delivery. Now I drew this as part of a bid for the track renewals program for our Network Rail, and we're starting to implement it. So how do we do our design, integrated 3D design? So how do we capture survey data, geospatial data, 4D, etc. in the model? But then how do we use that to do the digital rehearsal piece, which I talked about? So we have to put that in a data store to be able to do the digital rehearsal and bring in the 4D, etc. But also, what about all that project management data? So project managers often manage their projects based on how we're doing. What we're trying to do is, if you have an MIDP, so an information delivery plan, that says what you're going to deliver and when you're going to deliver it. You have a program, every project, it might be a Microsoft project, or if it's a big one, Primavera P6. And then you have a CDE. Now, your delivery happens in the CDE. Your design, your work happens in the CDE. And you then have your finance system. So what we're working on is how do we connect up the plan, the MIDP, with your program, P6 or Microsoft project, which can change, with this delivery place, the CDE, and then the financial, your timesheets, etc. So that way you can actually track your projects effectively to see what you're delivering, what deliverables you're doing, when you're doing them, and are you spending your budget, you on time, etc., etc., etc. So it's about how you get data to manage your project effectively. So all that, almost finished. You do all that stuff, how do you know you've done any better? We made a tool called the GDF assessment tool. Now, that is ISO 19650, really. It's just our phraseology of it. And we made a tool then to go through at each stage, bidding stage, early design, detailed design, etc. And then you can appraise how well you're doing. And things like, about the BEP or about your CDE, or, you've got different questions to answer and you get a score. And this is an example of some of our scores over various projects like East-West Rail and lots of road projects in there. So we then measure how well we're doing.
Sorry, Nick. That previous slide just then, what is that built on then? Is it built on BIM 360? Is it kind of sitting on that, or is it something that's built off the data that you're collecting all the time?
Yeah, this is nothing too clever. It's our own, just a tool that we made, I made a spreadsheet. I went through all the main things that I wanted to capture information about in terms of ISO 19650 BIM delivery. I then made a score. 0 is you do nothing. 5 is it's amazing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And then put weightings against them for most important ones. And then put that into just an online tool. And then this is just a Power BI output of that tool to show you how your different projects are performing. Okay. And it takes someone half an hour or 10 minutes to go through and say, right, it's 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And at the moment, it's not meant to be a proper score. It's just actually getting some, idea of how well you're doing. Final. thing. Progress to date, well, late 2019's gone, so we've got certification across UK, Middle East and India.
Thank you, Nick.
Hopefully that was useful.
I like the idea of your own template there, but how do you actually get everybody else to play along with it? Because that's one of the biggest problems we have with the industry. If Atkins have got one, then sure as eggs is eggs, another consultant will have a slightly different one. And you said about trying to get everyone to use the same element. How do you actually get them to do that?
It's not our template. Everything's built on ISO 19650. So if you have you might have a slightly different flavour, but you're following ISO 19650. So if you're following ISO 19650, it shouldn't be a problem. That's why I said the GDF is just our version of how you meet ISO 19650. If you follow it, you're meeting ISO 19650. We didn't believe that there wasn't good enough guidance to pull you through that process. It's too techy for our business, so we try to almost dumb it down. And even then, we're still having problems getting everyone to follow it. So I get your point completely, but no, everything we're doing is based on the standard.
And the second part of the question is those BIM modules you had for the training. Can we get those?
How much for each module?
Yeah, exactly. I'll sell them to you.
Yes.
So the answer to that is no. But again, I guess we want to share as much as possible, and I guess those modules are just based on the standards. So please don't get the impression that Atkins are going off on another tangent. They're not. The whole point of this is we are implementing the standard. It's just we're trying to make it as good as possible to implement.
Any other questions for Nick? Yeah.
I don't know what the split is architects, engineers and London, but do you think the industry is ready for standardisation? If you think of a Guggenheim-esque building, that's not got a single standardised piece in it. Are we ready to go down that road yet? And to go standardisation, what our built environment going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years' time?
I think.
Everything will be square box.
No, yeah. So.
For engineers, not for architects.
If you look at it's good to look at the work that Bryden would have been doing on they call it platforms. So like a car, yeah. So a car is built on standardisation. A car has a basic chassis. So if you buy a Skoda or you buy a VW, generally it's the same chassis between the two, and they can look completely different, can't they? So I think that's the best way I can explain it. I don't think this affects the architectural flair of companies one bit. I don't care what facade they put on it, for instance. But I think there's a whole load around standardisation of core componentry that can go into a building that can be completely standardised. So, 80-20 rule.
Any other questions? What's been the biggest challenge for a company like Atkins, Nick, to roll out some of those standards right across?
The biggest problem is people all wanting to do their own thing.
Yeah.
Still. So no, we don't want to do it like that, we don't want to do it like that. That's just, happens all the time. And we've got an opt-out culture. So, which is really great. You come and work at Atkins, you can do what you like. But at the same time, you can do what you like. So how are we going to get anything standardised? So it all comes to people.
One thing more, Nick, if you wouldn't mind. You mentioned Scandinavia having some resistance to the ISO. How closely aligned are the two workflows, the two processes between? They probably got their own processes and their own standards in place compared to the two.
Interestingly, the Scandinavian countries were always seen ahead on BIM. What they've been ahead on is modelling, not information management. So they've had no standards for information management whatsoever. What they've done is been very good at modelling and using open data standards like IFC. So they are trying to do them, and I often have a laugh around the Danish authorities because they kind of rehashed our BIM levels, and we're doing a bid now in Copenhagen, and we've got to deliver it to BIM level 3. Now we all have a good laugh at that because BIM level 3 doesn't exist. But hey ho, that's what they're asking for, so we need to understand what it is they want. So there is a job to get the rest of the world using ISO standards because it will make everyone better, but that's going to take time.
Thanks, Nick. All right. I've got a couple of questions to the
Sorry,
floor.
before we move on. Same bit of you've done this, but when you were talking about cloud-based models and constantly updating, you're knocking on the door a bit right there.
Yeah, but BIM level 3 was like, I guess you could break down BIM level 3 as two things, even though it was never formal. It was about what I call I model, so integrated CTEs, proper CTEs, yeah, which is what I'm talking. And then it's about using data towards the asset management phase, which is now what you call digital twin. So those are the two elements of BIM level 3. Now, when and that is what Scandinavia have taken up. They just call it BIM level 3, but it was never 100% of definition. It was more. There was a paper suggesting it.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Just a couple of questions before we get on to the next talk then. So somebody asked the question for me actually. Just wanted to understand who we have in the room. So architect. Right hand, left hand if you're an engineer. A little nervous. Contractors. Clients. Oh great. We've
I'm in charge of building surveyors.
all right. Surveyors.
Maintenance.
All right.
And the devil planners.
That's right. Hardware providers. Yep. All right. Really, it's good to see we've got a great mixture of people from various organisations. And last time I'm going to ask you to show your hands. Actually, I feel like we're in school. Who said they tweet? No. Keep your hand up if you haven't tweeted yet using our hashtag BIM Digital Standard. Right. Nobody. Great. We're doing a great job. So. Just a reminder, if it'd be good just maybe after the event, even just if you just share your thoughts, what you've learned from today, if it's been useful or not. We've all got access to that, so it'd be good just to get you involved. So hashtag BIM Digital Standard. So we've talked about standards, themes, and with that now it's actually good to see some of this in practice. So we're actually going to invite up now the project team from Taff Vale, so I'll let the team introduce who they are. I won't go through that again. But yeah, it's over to you guys. So,
Okay.
call them up one by one, or
I don't know. Are we all? I thought we were all standing up. You'll notice it's more than two people now. So, but we'll.
I'll just jump in when my section gets there because it's
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Right.
speaking less than him, so I'll stand here.
Okay.
introduce us now.
Yeah. So basically we're going to roll it back a little bit. We're going to jump back to reality, so to speak, and talk about Taff Vale. I mean, Taff Vale, kind of the inception of it was back in 2015, probably a little bit earlier than that as well. If we went beyond
2016.
yeah. And with that, there's obviously we've had a bit of a journey with the client. The client also is within this room. If he wants to put his hand up, he can, but it doesn't matter if he doesn't. And yeah, myself and Bruce especially, we've had obviously a bit of a journey with certain projects, and kind of what's happened on Taff Vale has kind of been a bit of a accumulation of what's happened over the past or beyond 2014 really, pre-2014. So a bit of a who's who, so you know who we are, the mug shots. There's Antony, so Antony's there, he works for Willmott Dixon, obviously came on board with us slightly later on during the project. Bruce as well, who's one of the senior associates at Downton B3. Probably I'd say you're one of the most clued up on BIM at Downton.
Yes.
So you've been dragged into all this. Yeah. Martyn, who is the project architect for Taff Vale, and myself. So I'm National BIM Manager at Hydrock Consultants. Thought I'd show a little bit of a quick slide as kind of who's been involved. Obviously that's not everyone that has been involved, but kind of what it alludes to really is kind of the fact that there's been a hell of a lot of people involved at different levels. So the idea of collaboration, which is one of the main reasons why we do this, has been really key to achieving what you see on site today. And I apologise if I missed anyone out as well. A couple of key stats. Mixed use. So basically it's 3 buildings. Building A, Building B, which are both predominantly office, and Building C, which is mixed use, which also includes retail and leisure. 38 million. That's probably approximate. If you include the footbridge as well, which was a bit of a separate project, and also what is now going on, there's a bit of a fit out going on of building A and B as well. In terms of frameworks, Antony B3 were appointed through the OJU framework, is that right? And then Willmott Dixon came through Superscat. 14,693 square metres of workspace. That's approximate, because that always seems to change with time. And it's due to be completed in spring, so that's Building C, due to be completed in the next few weeks.
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, there we are. Building B, which is September.
March.
Start of March, sorry, and then
Early
September.
March.
September for Building A.
September for Building A, and that's when Transport for Wales.
Yeah.
Will have their trains on.
Yeah, hopefully on time. And roll camera as well. So forecast to be BREEAM excellent. It's also BIM, I say BIM level 2. I'm gonna cower behind the parapets now with Paul. And yeah, office space, Cat A, Cat B fit out, and also, as I said, footbridge connecting the park. So in terms of general location, hopefully most of you know where Pontypridd is. That red sort of squarish area is where the site is. Obviously it's located to quite a few areas around Pontypridd, obviously a park. What else have we got? Bus depot, bridge, a road, a river. Taff Street is one of the main streets in Pontypridd. So in terms of its constraints, it's very constrained.
This is essentially the constraints plan. So you have got a main one-way street on Taff Street at that point. You've got a scheduled ancient monument in the old bridge, and then a Grade 2 listed historical centre right next to it, and a listed telephone box right next to it also. A river, which NRW are very keen on. Yeah, very constrained site, very constrained.
So, I mean, these are just a couple of images of the site, kind of as it was being cleared out. The first one on the left is kind of looking. So, if we go back to the previous plan, first image is kind of looking sort of that way. And then the second image is looking kind of from the other angle, so looking more north at the river. So really, if you think about it, building A and B would really be seen now if we were looking at this position right now. A and B on the left, and that would be where building C would be located on the right. Do you want to go through this one?
It essentially just reinforces the what you were saying earlier. So you've got the park on the right-hand side, which is War Memorial Park. You've got the main Taff Street, the majority of which is pedestrianised. And this shows the position of the development within the town context. And it's quite a small town. You can walk around quite quickly, and that's just showing you a very quick route around it.
So again, that's kind of a bit more of a site image of the site when it was cleared, which was taken back in
December 2016.
Yeah. And now that's what it looks like as of probably a few days ago.
Yep.
So that link, which Martyn's
so we had
shared.
Contractor set up a camera on the health centre on the opposite side of the river. So we've got the link, you see there, the web link, with an updated picture every 15 minutes.
Yep.
You can see from the office without actually going to site.
Yeah. And along with that as well, there's a video that kind of stitches all those together, so you kind of see it kind of building up and growing over time, which is quite nice to see as well. And yeah, with that then, sort of starting, I guess, against the realms of information management, straight away, we kind of obviously sat down, we got the concept of what the buildings were going to look like. And from the client brief as well, we kind of figured out, straight away started grouping together, zoning, using the SLM92 as kind of the bones of obviously making sure that what we're delivering to the client at the end of the day is structured, really. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is probably where I came in. I get involved in a lot of BIM at Darnton B3 and have been involved with RCT on previous projects. So I helped the team to draw together some standard documents, employees information requirements. We basically took the information requirement that we had from RCT and sort of moulded that into a BIM task group sort of standardised format that could be then, if required, reused by RCT. And the idea throughout the whole of it was to try and approach in the whole process in as standardised way as possible. So we weren't creating too many bespoke documents or too many things that were unusual or difficult for people to grasp. Just trying to keep it as route of least resistance and try and follow the standards as much as possible. So that was, we put together a employees information requirement to start off with. That obviously helped us to talk about what platforms we wanted to use, what software we were going to use, how we were going to exchange information as part of the teams, which model formats we were going to use, how we were going to federate and clash detect things. And we actually used IFC and Celebri to do that. And then obviously working out what the site coordinates were and setting up that site coordinate system based off the original OS grid and the site survey early doors, so that everybody could federate models immediately as soon as we started, basically. So that was, we set up a shared coordinate system in Revit to basically enable that. And we pulled that together along with, this was our brief from RCT, which were the requirements that they needed for their Technology Forge asset system. You can see down the side here that the names of the parameters that they wanted to have information to populate within their Technology Forge system, and then the kinds of bits of kit across the top, so whether they be AHUs or automatic doors or CCTV, which parameter worked with each one. So it's a very simple but effective way of conveying that information to us as a team, so that we could then say, right, okay, we've got an idea of the quantum of data that you need. We can now work out how we can put it in and how we can brief that to the contractor moving forward. So we built upon that slightly, actually flipped it around the other way, so that the parameters, the kit was down the side and the parameters went across the top. And we just added some colouring for who was going to provide it. So red is by the contractor, blue is by the design team, grey is not required. And then there were a couple for sort of Kobe, which were the sort of yellow and green out of Kobe, purple ones that we felt that the client would actually need but hadn't asked for. So we put them in as well in terms of fire rating, fire designation and acoustic designation of doors and walls and things like that. And then we just put little radio buttons in to say who was going to provide at each stage. And this was just it ran from stage 2, which is where we were involved, through to stage 7, and obviously at different stages there were more and more radio buttons in there saying who was going to provide what and for what bit of kit. We felt that was quite necessary in order to get that sort of granularity of information across to the contractor, so that they have a fair go at actually being able to price it and being able to tell their sort of supply chain how to do it. At the time when we put that together, these weren't probably very common. You wouldn't see those. There are probably better formats available now, and you see them around in terms of asset information requirements. But that basically got us to where we needed to be for the project. So then part of obviously the EIRs and working into the BEP, the BIM execution plan was then making sure that we had outlined the client's requirements, which we've done, but then it was about reviewing the models and making sure that we were reviewing them enough, making sure that we understood, once we put that information into the model, how we were going to get it out and give it to the clients so that they could then put it into their technology forged system. At the beginning, that wasn't very clear, how we would get it out and how we would give it to the client and how they would use it, but we knew that if we got it in there, we'd be able to work out a way of getting it out later and exchanging that. We knew obviously what the client's strategic purpose of the data was. So then we needed to check the model as we were going through to make sure that the information that was going in there was right and was at a level that needed to be. Basically that allowed us to put the information into the tender documentation, so that, as I said before, was transmitted clearly to the contractors so that they could price it fairly. And then we, at tender stage, we provided an EIR, BEP, that parameter schedule, so that was all fairly clear. And we obviously already been doing clash detections, and they were there as well. It was a two-stage design and build tender. This is back to you, Lewis.
Yeah. So this is moving now on to, I suppose, the design stage. As I said, site constraints. There's a lot of site constraints, basically. Also, along with that, there was contamination in the ground as well. I know the geotechnical team had a lot of fun with that, which was quite interesting. Alongside that, there was a lot of existing drainage as well on the site. Obviously, being a brownfield site and next to a river, there's culverts as well. So there were, I suppose, a lot of challenges in terms of making sure that we picked up everything prior to going onto site. Especially with things like piling as well. 3 buildings going onto site, it's going to be a hell of a lot of piling. So there's obviously risks in terms of dealing with that. So still on the project design stage, obviously really key that we keep engaging with the client and also the stakeholders, which includes local interest groups. So I know Dance B3 did a lot of exhibitions in terms of conveying the concept of the building, how the building's going to look. So that was done with a lot of VR.
Yeah, the size of the project tipped the balance and that required it to go through the public consultation route. So yeah, we met with local interest groups, access groups, blind groups, deaf groups, and others. We had an exhibition in the town over 3 days, and we met with the key stakeholders, so the people using the building. So the ones we knew at the time for the Curve building, which were library and gym services and council services. And because we had the model in 3D, we were able to go down Argos, get Google Cardboard for £1.50, put the model on there, and stick them in the space and say, here you go, that's your library. That's where you're putting your desk, that's where you're going to sit. There's where you can have all your books set out. We get used to looking at drawings, 2D plans, and being able to interpolate that and see the space within it. You give a 2D plan to a librarian, and they don't have the same vision that we have. Can't see through beyond the lines. So you put them in a 3D space with Google Cardboard or a VR headset. It breaks that barrier down straight away, and they can see sizes of rooms. They can see head heights. They can see desks. They can see windows. It really helps. It really does help.
And along that, obviously, you know, the fact that we've got a model in place, and as Martyn says, you know, we're showing clients and end users what the building is going to look like. There's obviously coordination that needs to happen prior to that. Yeah, obviously we were coordinating prior to Willmott Dixon being appointed as the main contractor. It's on to you, Martyn.
Oh yeah, I get the fun bit. So you saw the curved building, hopefully. All of this is in Revit, in 3D, and you saw all the names of companies that are involved. Just the building C, so we had the architectural model, you have the M&E model, you have the structural model at design stage. You also have the site models, again in all three disciplines that sit under that to hold that building up. Then it goes later on. This is stroke construction stage. So the structural model goes out to steelworkers, so they take part of that, and we've got their model that goes into that again. The skin of that building, you can imagine that's not the easiest thing in the world. It's a steel frame with timber cassette panels bolted onto it all the way around. So we set up that grid coordinate system and shipped out our architectural file in the IFC format. And then hopefully suppliers then would use that global system and say, right, I've got that building in digital form, I can put my things in it. Didn't quite work out as well as we hoped, because global positioning doesn't put your building slap bang in front of you. It will put it, depending on where your software was built, it will put it in another country. So we've got our model in IFC. A company called Constructional Timbers did the timber cassettes, so they made sure that their model sat within the wall thickness that we had in ours. What you're looking at here is outside that again. The skin of the building, which we modelled, was taken in from an IFC into Grasshopper, and a load of code in sitting behind it. But what you're seeing here, and on the next slide, please, is the division of zinc tiles. When we first looked at that, we thought, you're going to do tiles, you're just going to get a good tiler who's just going to go around it as best he can. But no, it's not going to work like that. You start at one end, you've got quite a crazy shape. By the time you get to the other side, work your way around, you've got a slither of zinc like that, or it's not going to quite work. Load of coding behind it, behind a 3D shape. You start shifting slide bars. We can create that exact grid. So that then gets shipped off to Rhys, who cut every individual tile. Gets to site, it's a jigsaw, it goes together. Apart from when you get to Windows, where you need a good bit of skill to do that detailing. That's what you see in there. You're seeing the IFC model taken into another format, played around with. This was over a video conferencing, and we were moving the slide bars as we were talking, saying, actually, you know, we want to see a bit more there. It's a bit too close. Can we make that a bit more? It's cross-platform collaboration, which we're looking at there.
Before
Yeah,
Martyn,
so it's clash detection with Celebri. As I say, we've got the architectural models, the M&E, the steelwork models, structural model, all these different trades coming in across building C, building B, building A, and the site model. We're getting about 20 plus IFC models all coming in. We've got a big old chunk of a building to clash coordinate. Clash detection lessons learned. You can't go to the architect's job book and find a standard agenda for a clash coordination meeting. It doesn't exist. Unless they changed it recently, it's not there. You literally go into a room thinking, what do we do? We relied heavily on Celebri in this instance, because you clash coordinate any single model, you'll come up with thousands of clashes, from a door that overlaps a wall by about that much to a steel beam that's going through a wall that shouldn't or that should. And the software isn't clever enough to say, you don't need to worry about this, you do need to worry about that. What Celibri did do was say, look, these are some big clashes here, area-wise. We'll tag them as red, then this yellow, and then they're saying it actually needs to be at the head of it. Let's just say doors. And we had to sort of grope around and to try and rationalise it, rather than having a big old chunky meeting that goes on all day and people start losing the will to live.
Yeah. I think the classic one as well was the fire alarm detectors. So I know we put in a boundary around the fire detectors to illustrate, you know, the smoke, where it's going to basically affect the detector itself, and that was included on the clash detection. We spent, you know, we started going through and then realised, wait a minute, these are all the same here. Come on, so your
there's 20-metre diameter
yeah.
jellyfish
Yes.
all over the
jellyfish
all over
was
the
the same,
site.
yeah.
So the lessons learned for that were how are you going to run a clash coordination meeting, what you want to get from it, and how you're not going to lose the team behind it. And I'm not sure if it's the next one. The next slide, is it?
We're down to Willmott Dixon.
Yes.
Yeah.
The benefit of having Willmott Dixon on board on this is that they brought a structure with them. And listening to what Nick was saying earlier, that having a structure in place and people who know a system is invaluable. As a company, this wasn't our first foray into BIM, but it was certainly the biggest, and so one we've learned the most lessons from. But a silly little thing like, how often do you run a clash coordination? So this is the structure we had when we got the contractor on board, so designed just before we got the site. So we are clash coordinating every 2 weeks. So we'll pick a date that we're going to clash coordinate. So let's say, number one, it's on a Monday. There. Yes? No? Sorry? It's 5. That's where we're going to do the clash review. The Thursday before it, I need to have received all my models. I need to be ready to just run a report and get it out to the computer. So 2 days before that, I need to know that all the models are ready to go. So on the Monday, I'm saying all my consultants need to be issuing me their latest model, because the following Monday there's a meeting to clash coordinate it, which means by the time you get to the clash coordinating meeting, all those models are a week out of date anyway. And in order for them to give me their models, I need to have already given them my model. So my model is probably a week and a half, 2 weeks out of date by the time we get to the clash coordination meeting there. You've got to try and work that in. The design process is always playing catch up with itself. But just having that in place and a team agreeing to this timetable, and this is where it's going to be, and by the time we get to that meeting, you may have already dealt with that issue, but I'm going to flag it up anyway, and by the time we get to the next one, we'll be bouncing ahead. But as long as you've got that structure in place for people to follow, this is the type of thing that the BS 1192, 1960, doesn't actually tell you. This is the bit you've got to try and work out for yourself and bring the team along with you.
I suppose alongside with that, Willmott Dixon, obviously when they came on board, so they embraced the data requirement that RCT kind of set upon the team to deliver. Along with that as well, they brought a very, very, very strict approval process for the common data environment, which in this case is 4P.
Got to be strict.
I know, you have, yeah. Now, you know, it's great, but I think they were obviously a lot of pains to begin with. You know, I think maybe there were probably certain people within different teams that maybe didn't understand naming, the correct name, correct way to name things.
I think once people get involved and see the benefits, they're all on board. Then it's just showing the way it's done. It's easy
Yeah.
to say no before you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and as Martyn said, 20 plus models, and the management of those models on the 4P system, and alongside with that, with the clash detection meetings that we were having, with Willmott Dixon taking the lead on that was really crucial in making sure that when it started to land onto site, things started rolling on site, that we were in a good position, really. So yeah, obviously as Martyn has said about the open formats of collaboration, there were efforts to make sure that what we were doing was as open as possible with IFC. Along with that, with also the footbridge fabricator as well, so IFC was used with that, and the steelwork models as well, hence why it's split into the structural models, because part of it is concrete, part of it is steel. So again, when we're talking about 20 plus models, it quickly starts, expanding relatively quickly when the steel fabricator comes on board, and then Willmott Dixon is saying, right, time's now to split the model up, so we can basically look at it in a federated model in Revizto as well. Just to plug your name again.
Work for Revizto, if nobody's noticed yet. I'm going to interrupt Lewis, we've just hit time, so we've another 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
I've just been planned to be here till 5. So.
You got 5 through yours as well. That's
yeah,
it.
so.
Yeah, okay. Obviously as well, naturally, I'm not going to go on to full rating it right now. I can see all the MEP consultants and starting to go like this. Really quickly, it was extremely complex managing the fit out. Basically, A and B turned into fit out phasing, and I suppose with hindsight, if we'd have probably sorted things out with Briggs a little bit earlier, maybe that wouldn't have been that much of an issue. We did have workshops with Briggs and Forrester, who are the MEP contractors, and to basically make sure that they were kind of in that at that point in time where they were happy with the model in terms of taking that to site. And yeah, I think with hindsight it would have been probably a little bit of an easier process if we'd have we sat down with them earlier. Cat A and B fit out, there is actually a difference. Someone in our team maybe didn't fully understand the difference between Cat A and Cat B, which probably put us on the back foot a little bit. But I believe we're all sorted out now. Tree pits as well was another unforeseen, partially relating to the fact that the landscape architect wasn't working in 3D, which is a bit of a shame. So naturally, when we were coordinating our model within the basement, where the tree pits fell into the basement, we kind of almost assumed a shape, a worst case scenario shape. That shape turned out to be slightly different, which then almost put us a little bit more in terms of we need to basically rejig the plant room slightly, and then again feeding those changes, because this was at a point in time where it was on site, and obviously trying to make that change is a lot more difficult when things are going on site. So yeah, D&B, so this is more to do with the design and building, and the fact that when the contractor's on site building, sometimes all unseen changes might not be necessarily picked up or fed back to the architect. Is that right?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's trying to get past the old way of thinking on the design and build. You're rushing towards the end part of a project handover. Contractor starts making decisions as they go, and it's making sure everybody's still involved with the project and feeding back, and little tweaks of walls and what you might originally have thought not all that important. Probably isn't. but for an accurate build model, you do need to feedback and make changes.
Yeah. And I think it alludes to mainly if they're not completely picked up in whatever circumstance that might be, does that then almost lead to inaccuracies that lead to, that gets handed over to the client, and then it's almost like, does that building represent, we talk about a digital twin, does it represent what has been built? And yeah, this is more just an image of what Build and See is like. I think the image on the left was taken back in November, and what Briggs's and Forrester's model looks like. And hopefully you can see that it is pretty similar. I mean, I wanted to illustrate this, the fact that, the MEP contractors fully embrace what we're trying to do. Obviously, Build and See is a bit of a flagship building. We really wanted to make this work, and it has it. Because otherwise, if that ceiling had to be dropped, it would have made changes to a hell of a lot of other things, which is not it's a detriment to other design team members. So, I think that was your slide.
That was for me.
That was
it's going back to what
about.
we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
We were very lucky on site at Willmott. Dixon did a mock-up of the external of Building C. And I'm sure we're going to go on to it later, the point cloud.
Yeah.
We can make this nice digital model that is perfect, and if it could be built perfect, then it's great. But you've got tolerances with timber.
Yeah.
So we had to go around later and do a point cloud and make sure that what we actually had was still buildable,
Yeah.
and still fitting with the grid.
I think given the time, we'll jump to yours. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You have too much, but
How long have I got?
you've got more than 2 hours on today.
I'm a primary, I can talk fast, so give me the time.
That's 10 minutes, so if everyone's okay with that, does everyone have to dash off now? Everyone okay for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Big answer yes, or would you want to leave?
Right. So when we got involved, I'll try and be as quick as I can on the slides. This is, can you see that?
Yeah, fine.
This is our documentation we have. So as Nick was saying before, what we got at Atkins, we standardised the processes. We've just created a new set of templates that match the ISO, but obviously this project was still looking to the PAS set of documents and standards and push standards. So this is just a snapshot of my toolkit that I manage. So this is where we're looking at. This is my saying on the compliance on the project. We're looking at, we have workflows evoked on Viewpoint. We're tracking the approval process. Viewpoint structure is our flat structure, aligned to BS 927. The file naming protocol is what FNP, so that's part of the appendix to the BEP. So this is where we're saying we're standardising the number set that people use, so we know where to find information quickly. The AAR, we talked about previously, what's going on with the information in there, and the BEP. So if I quickly go in here, this is basically from the project we deliver. We have a separate file naming protocol, and I won't spend too much time on that side because it's a bit boring and we haven't got much time. But that's the gist of the programme. And if you quickly snapshot that, that's where we are. I hope everybody knows this by now. It surprising how many people can't understand that, mind. This is viewpoint house structure, so the coloured dots you see means that that's where the workflow is. So we have where the strictness comes in, he alluded to earlier, we're saying we have a person sitting on to say, is the file name correct as a first check? If it's not, it doesn't get up to the viewpoint. We don't want to say all of it on viewpoint is a mess, not named correctly. We'd rather it didn't go on there at all, rather than have to read and delete information. Simple slide showing that. Same in the model, which you saw earlier, and then just the fact that working through open formats, ISC, big fan of the way we work with that. So as a secondary file on Viewpoint, every model that goes up has an ISC equivalent of it as well. So obviously goes into sleep with flash detection. That again, this is a live at the process we're in at the moment. This is a quick snapshot of some of the items we got. Under the account codes, we got automated doors, and that's the information we're tracking, which goes into the tech forward system. And I know previously we got feedback from RTC that they've tried to get this system working on previous projects and it hasn't happened. So I'll just guarantee now it's going to happen. This information is there, it's in the model, we're tracking it and we know how to deliver it. So it's just about the transfer then from the information into the tech forward system, just communicating that. So we've got it all captured. That's like some more information just to show you the level of it. There's probably about another 6 sheets I could put on there, the information going into it. And this is where we're looking at the point cloud. So this is what we call validating the envelope. So we did a survey
the slide you just saw where they're putting up the timber and the zinc panels, hats off to the guy who built that by hand, making that work, because we thought we need to check, have we got a robust system in place so this poor guy is going to make the stuff, is it going to work to what we designed? So we go through here, this is in Revizto, this is a visual check we're doing in there. So at the moment we've got the shelf shown there, which is where the zinc will go onto, and we peel it back. So we've then looked at the structure of the timber, and you probably noticed just on here, little things slightly out of tolerance, so just here, nothing too major, wasn't that many things to worry about. So we're quite happy at that point in time that the method we're using was working okay for us. So I keep stripping it back to the layers, and then I can go through the point cloud itself in the system, just fade it out or disperse the point so it's a bit easier to see what's underneath. So we can look at then the windows, the frames, how they tie into the steel structure as well, just to make sure we've got a system, we're not suddenly having a window over a beam we weren't aware of, so we're just checking through there. We then got the 360 capture as well. So same project, we're using this has been used as an R&D process really, so we've got information captured. So we're using, if anyone wants to know about 360 cameras, there's a Ricoh Theta Z1, great little thing, it's about the size of an iPhone, really small compact unit, takes a second to do an image. And so we go in here, we put a 360 stamp, which you can see my cursor, so these stamps here you can see floating around. So in this system, we can apply information, tasks or photos to them. So that's a snapshot of a floor plan with the 360 stamps located. So where the red stamps are, that's where we've then taken a photograph, which you can see on the right hand side over there, if I move that just here. Get back onto this screen. And then that's the 360 image, but then what I've got, I just managed to show you, in case people aren't aware of the 360s, this is it running, hopefully, if this works. No. For some reason that's not running, that should be running the 360 in there. Typical. As usual, ran during the test, doesn't run now. But that would have been, yeah, I showed you, didn't I? It's a 360 spin around, so the idea is we could be in this room, see all around you 360, look up, look down and capture everything in that space.
If you minimise the PowerPoint, will it?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, you should just click in there, it's where it's fine, would it? Okay, anyway, we've got the strong. So the asset data, so what we're looking on this model we showed you previously in the other slides. We're looking at, we've got a sort of Power BI system set up at the moment. So we're going through looking at all this data is what you saw earlier. So we pushed that, we've got a standardised data set in Excel. We push that into Power BI and we're then checking against the information we've got. And all these are filtered on the sheet. So look through here, we can look at then the automated doors, checking GE doors, look at the serial numbers and the reference to where they are, and we're checking the model at the same location. It's come from the model, we're pushing it into Power BI, so it should be fine. But we'll look at the checks in here. We then did the same slice through the model in here, and then we can run filters on that. So at the moment, that's no filters running on the entire project of each floor, all the systems we've got in place. We can then, you'll notice it changed then the filter. So we've got automated doors again, and that's showing me, quite simply in that graphic, that all of them areas have the automated doors, and what they are listed, that's a table that's live, and scroll down across the information on there. We'll come into here. We then, which is my favourite bit of how we use Power BI, we can go into the graphic itself. We've clicked on that green one at the top there, you can see, on ground floor, and that shows me exactly all the items that are in that room. So it's a nice simple method of just saying, click the room, what's in it, and then we can check. And again, we're at the stage now, I've just shown you another project we're just handing over at the moment. So this is talking about my favourite subject really, I can bore people to death with this. So structured data. So quickly just highlighting the valve tractor door. This is the story of a fire door in a model coming out into a massive coding spreadsheet we've done for a project recently. So the idea you can see down there that in Celebri, which is what I like to say, the important thing with technology is you're not pinning all your hopes on one piece of software. So I think if we use IFC from the format we're doing, and all sorts of viewers and different tools to use, that's where I want to go. So I'm going to show you quickly that it works in all of them the same. So in Celebri, we've got a load of property sets we've created. This is basically a COBE type parameter in here. So that's the external 1B. We're tracking that door as an instance over on that right hand side there as a component. And we're tracking it there as part of a job we've aligned it to SSG 20's maintenance schedules. So that's what we're looking to do on most projects as the norm, as default. So we tie into SG20 as our scope of what we're doing to maintain. So that's why I captured it in Sleep and seed it through YFC. And that same model, same information, can be seen in Navisworks. So it doesn't matter if you're in Navisworks or Sleep, you're still getting the same input. And obviously then you're Revizto as well. So we've got the same information tracked under there. Hyperlinks are all activated to go to the products you're looking at as well. So that's basically what we're going to be looking to do for this job. If that information is required, then they can make use of the model. We're not going to do it if there's no benefit, and we can just do it with the data we've got in the spreadsheet. So it's just another method of interaction. So the fact that that could be in any of your free viewers, click on the item, give you all the data sets you're after. And I think that's as quick as I can make it. That's the end of it.
Great, Antony. Sorry for the last minute pressure.
That's all right. Talk as fast as good. We'll get video to play for.
Round of applause. Thank you very much. I thought it was a little ambitious to finish at 5 o'clock, but we got there 10 minutes past. So my extended thank you to all of the talks today. Great, really interesting, diverse range of talks. So we'll open the floor to questions if there are any. I'm conscious that we've kept you a little longer than we said we would, but nobody seems keen to leave right now. But if you do need to go, then please feel free to do so. But I'll invite the team up now, and Paul, if you don't mind, and open the floor to questions. So if you do have to go, then feel free to ask us via the hashtag I mentioned earlier on, or through the Alliance website. But please do stay for another 5 or 10 minutes if you do have questions, or if there are any comments about the latest presentation, even from anybody else that was involved in the project. Questions? Biggest challenge for the project, gentlemen? Biggest lesson learned? Lewis, come on, maybe for Hydrock.
For Hydrock?
Yes.
I could take my turn if you want. I think it's the data requirements. So I think understanding what you need to put into the model. It's amazing how simple something sounds when you say, I want this data in a model, I want that data from the model, but it's these components, I want them components to come out into this spreadsheet that's telling me this information. It sounds quite simple when you just make it statements, but getting people to deliver it is the hardest bit I find at the moment. Even in a Revit environment that people are used to, we just need to have these shared parameter files. It's as simple as drag them in, populate information. But people aren't doing that.
Yeah.
So it's all about what you're saying before in Nick's presentation, behaviour and people. So hardest not to crack is people doing what you're asking them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And even harder than that is getting people to read the document you've created, which tells them what to do. So that's why I think we've lessons learned from where we've worked in the BIM environment for a few years now is the PAS documents set standard to work in. We had a set of templates that ask certain questions. The ISO, in my mind, has helped because it's given us a bit more freedom and scope to simplify it. So we've had something like a documentation which were 15, 30 pages and we've restricted it down to 10 pages. So we're now looking at a bit pragmatic approach to what have we previously asked you. We still want that, but we're now going to describe it far simpler, with far less information, and hopefully people start to read that. So I think that's the biggest challenge, get people to actually do what you're asking.
Anything from the Darwin team? Oh, sorry, Lewis.
Well, I was going to say, probably from my perspective, is trying to get everyone working in that same environment.
Okay.
Landscape, civils, civils with Hydrock,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get them to utilise even the form of, whether it's, they're outputting something from Civil 3D into IFC,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's viewed in a federated environment. That's a big step to making sure that what happens then on site is easier to sort of manage. That's certainly a challenge from what I experienced on the project, trying to persuade the civils team to use at least a 3D form of software.
Yeah, got it.
Lewis, could I just say something? Kieran Charlie here. I'm 30 years civils. I've worked across the world, many projects, big projects. I've literally come up with books file this morning at £230 million project. When you say we can't work in a civils world, civils people, is it you mean that we can't work in a BIM world that is geared around Revit? Because the fact is we've been 3D for 30 years.
Yeah.
Now when people say that to me, talk to me, because I have literally just done IFC from Civil 3D this morning. From range. I've done a lot with Rhys, sorry.
So
with Welsh Water when we work on civil projects.
Yeah.
There's a mistake to make that a lot of people think BIM is you're not BIM unless you do Revit.
No, I think it's...
And the limitations sometimes come from Revit and not necessarily with Civil 3D. I can do anything in Civil 3D and give it to you in any format you like. The downside with the format these days at the moment is IFC isn't configured for the civils world because they literally haven't stepped outside the building and coded the rest of the outside work. But for Willmott, I dealt with Willmott with Civil 3D, with so many people say it can't do things, the Bentley projects can't do things, software can't do things, they can, but it's not there yet.
No, I think, and I mean, I suppose I don't really want to talk about Hydrock in terms of its history, but historically Hydrock was like groundworks, you know, remediation. That's what they did. So it's very much in Hydrock, and this is something I'm trying to tackle. Is culture, a very old school culture when it comes to infrastructure and civil Hydrock, and I think that's part of the problem. And obviously, you know, there's a lot of development now in soil infrastructure.
I
going forward.
I go to Bentley's year in infrastructure conference. I've been there for the last 7 years. I've seen BIM projects in 3D, big infrastructure projects, dams, railways, roads, bridges, you name it. I've seen it at those events, produced with elapsed by teams who know what they're doing, and you know, they are puncturing the illusion that BIM equals Revit. BIM is not software. BIM is a process, and you know the technologies are simply tools for authoring part of that process. We need to be thinking the more holistic big picture.
Good point. And yeah, maybe one of the next events we can look at one of the infrastructure examples. Any challenges from yourself, Rhys, Martyn, from Darton that sort of lessons learned?
Yeah, Antony's probably pinched the biggest one for me, which is understanding the client data, how they want it structured, down to the brass tacks of what the names and the parameters are that we're going to put that information in, that little holder, so that we can then kick that information out at the end. And we were quite lucky that RCT had actually done a fair bit of work on that already, and they had spreadsheets that we could go through with them and discuss these things. So there's always some interpretation, should we say, along the way. So having that as clear as you can get it is a brilliant lesson learned from the start.
What really worked well for the project team? I mean, what really stuck out as something that you would take onto the next project if you were all to work together again? Was there something that really stuck out over and above everything else?
I'll pick up on that because it's one of the biggest pains, and it's been mentioned earlier, it took a hell of a long time for people to fall in line, and it's naming convention in line with 1192 to make sure that everything was named correctly. And it sounds silly, really, really silly, just to make sure that a particular drawing has a particular name and is always named like that. But then you put it into a file structure, it recognises that it's already there and will overwrite and will put a revision next to it. And then you can do flat file structures and you can find drawings a heck of a lot quicker, rather than somebody whacking up a drawing quickly on a Friday afternoon saying red A. You say, no, that's not the most up to date because you haven't put it in the right position. And that was goes on the thing.
I think you have to be strict with a lot of things, and the most simple thing that we found is file naming. I mean, all this talk of augmented reality, algorithms, all the rest of it, great, we're heading that way, not interested. I want person A to name a file, as we've said, to put it onto the CGE, and we'll start from there. And then with small steps.
Let's walk first, right, before we start with the floor. So I don't want to ask all the questions, but I can if you'll leave the mic in my hands. Yep, fire away.
I found it very interesting what you were saying about spreadsheets for the asset data, because I work for a specialist contractor doing Manor and Massey in Bristol. We've started to push this and look at how we can work with main contractors and deliver our element to help the architects and look how we can use it for our business. One of the key places that we struggle is both at tender stage and want a job, getting any clear indication of what's required from us versus what's required from the architect or somebody else with regards to deliverables, and how they want that data formatted. What parameters, how they want the name, etc.
Are you coming from more from the point of view of the geometry-based requirements, or are we talking about information as well?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, the data is a big hold point for us. At the moment, we're trying to develop sort of standardised templates that we can then put out to
Data. There's a set of standards due to come out, I think, later in the year. ISO standards, looking at sort of PDTs, the hierarchy of that. But I have an insight into how that's all going to be formulated, we're seeing that standard. So if we look at the idea of, if you used to Google some along the lines of harmonised standards, there's basically, when you get any product off the shelf that somebody supplies to you, you have to have a CE mark, and the CE mark has to go through a certain testing regime. And I think it's, from memory, I think it's in the standards a ZA clause, remember rightly? If you go into there, it gives you basically the structure of what data should be named as on your objects, exactly, based on that standard. So if you're a fire door, if you're a piece of cladding panel, if you're a sandwich panel, it tells you what to do. And there are systems out there, that I won't advertise who does it, but there are systems out there that will take that information and allow you to do it. So you want to say, this is my object, if you want to go down that path, this is my data, and what we would like to have in the perfect world is bring in this object, bring in the right data for the project. So if there's 20 lists of information, we only want 5 that are relevant, let's bring them in from a standardised set of information.
So what we've been looking at is controlling that for our IFC exports. So using the property set values and things like that to export just the file, just the parameters that are required.
Yes.
And also using that to rename them to suit the application of that project.
The important thing is always going back to the standard of where you get the names from, and otherwise you're never going to get the case of somebody calling fire rating mixed methods. Yeah. I would say so also as well, probably from the architectural point of view, do we really need you to produce geometry to put into a model? Because the architect does the job of modelling it all through the stages, and then we're saying, well, we need to have an idea from yourselves, and whatever format you supply it in, is it workable, is it buildable from what's been designed? Does that necessarily mean it needs to be an object overlaid into the model? I don't think so at that time. It's about understanding the information the architect could then match up. If it's a setting out, you've got to tweak something 20 mil, something like that. Why bring in an object and all the information that comes through that? Trying to get a family to switch out in the Revit world and all the implications of that as well. If it's just some information they need to know.
2 points on that. One thing that sprung to mind, there's various different door manufacturers that will give you a Revit model of their door, and it comes with a whole Titanic size amount of data on it. And when you flush them through our project with all those doors, there's so much data, the whole project has fallen over. There's too much information. I don't need to know the size of the screw that's going to be holding in the hinge on that door on that particular floor. All I need to know is it's a door, it's a fire door. But it links to my second point. I don't think they're ever going to get to a point where your fire ratings are going to be all in caps or capitalised at the front, or lowercase or underscore. I think we need to be more looking at. I think we need to be looking more at. We need to be looking more at data mapping. I think you're always going to have that, and then
I have to disagree. Get away from data mapping, standardising the data. I think you can probably give more advice.
There's a couple of things which are happening at the moment. Construction Innovation Hub is rekindling conversations about product data templates.
Yeah.
There is a meeting early February with what project is called Lexicon. So they're reviewing what was done. Yeah, well, they're looking at resurrecting it, perhaps in a modified and improved form, but without necessarily some of the negative impacts of construction products manufacturers on some of the process here. So, yeah, it's watch this space, I think, as far as product data templates.
We'll take one more question then, if before you wrap up. So, one more question, but I mean, we'll all be hanging around after this, so feel free to stay and ask more questions. But in the interest of letting people disappear, yes.
Can I ask the last question then? What has it saved in time, project, money?
What does it say in time?
If anything. Now, that's what it's theoretically, my understanding, what it's meant to be all about, isn't it?
When I first went on my BIM journey, It doesn't save any time. In fact, it probably makes more, it creates more time. Because you've got to put a lot more information in. There are benefits to be had later on and pulling information out. Even that can be cumbersome. And generally, we are creating more work for ourselves.
Where's the biggest benefit then, would you say, in
Can I
operation?
chip in?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the benefit to be gained is from reuse of standardised components. So if, this is our first really large thing, and it's got a lot of bespoke content in it, as you can see. We've had to model all of that, and we're unlikely to, for our next mixed-use community building, to build another one exactly like that. So there's limit to how much reuse we'll get out of that. But on other projects that we've done, where there might be schools where we've been able to reuse a lot of the content, the screens on the walls, the chairs, the tables, and those workflows. I think that's where the benefit comes. You save a little bit of time, but you still have detailed things. That's all got to be done in 2D per project.
One of the greatest benefits can be at the same time one of its greatest failings. On its basic level, you change something in plan, it's automatically changed it in elevation and section. So you can go to the next view, go to the next view. That window has moved to there in all the views you needed to move to, and so long as you've dimensioned to the right line, it will go through it. As soon as somebody breaks the process and says, damn, I just need to get a drawing out, I'll tell you what, I'll do it in AutoCAD, I'll put it on a Revit sheet, and out it goes. I can't then update that drawing as quickly, and you fall in over yourself. Process needs to be carried through to it.
I would say that's more software diagnostic. I think that's just as you open. So I'd answer the question slightly differently. I'd probably look at the cost savings from our perspective were the great job that DB3 had done with capturing customers' requirements. If he hadn't have done that, the amount of jobs I've got where I look for a load of guff at 60 pages trying to tell me something, I'm trying to find out what I'm trying to get to, and I don't understand them. We then go to that customer and find out ourselves. So it was quite clear in their documentation, there's a massive cost saving to me and our business that we're not spending 2 weeks trying to interpret a load of guff in a document. So happy with what you had there, that's a saving. I'd also say the fact that we've got that data set, which is totally relevant to the TechForge system, is going to benefit the customer because he's going to get what he's asked for to maintain that facility. So all the cost benefits are customer side. I think we need to remember that it's not just about us as a business getting benefits, it's what we're supplying to the customer. At the end of it, it's their building, we're doing it for them, so any cost savings we can do and make it into pragmatic and standardised, that's our time savings. But cost, I'd say, is probably more to the customer we hand it over.
Yeah.
So they're not looking around for multiple bits of information in different systems, it's in one model, it's in one data sheet. So I think that's what I would answer.
One thing to that.
Yep.
Look at it also from the professional practice side of things. I've spoken to at least 2 design firms who went fully 100% BIM. They've improved the quality of the work that they can produce. They've improved the quality of the quality of the earnings they're getting. They've grown their business. In one case, a Leeds firm that I saw present last month grew from 5 people to 45 in 5 years. Because they'd adopted BIM as their way of working. They didn't have CAD technicians or anything else. They did purely BIM, and they're now more profitable and bigger than they would ever have imagined if they'd stuck with the old way of doing things.
I think that's a great comment to end on, Paul. I'll just echo that, a real good statement. So with that, again, extended thanks to everyone that's been involved to make this the event it's been today. Hopefully it's been useful. If you do want to get involved in the next series of talks, presentations, and you have content that you'd like to share, then come and talk to us afterwards, or send us an email or a tweet, whatever it is you want to do, and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you everybody for coming. Speak to you all soon.